Today's lesson is on rounding decimals to any place. Rounding decimals is very similar to rounding numbers like you have in the past. First, let's look at rounding a decimal to the nearest whole number. For the first example, we are going to round 1 6/10 to the nearest whole number. First, let's use a number line. We know that 1 6/10 is between the numbers 1 and 2. First, we have to know where 1 6/10 is on the number line. We break up the number line into 9 pieces, each piece representing 1/10. We can number the number line so that it shows each tenth between the numbers 1 and 2. Remember last week when we talked about adding a 0 behind the decimal without changing its value? Well, we are going to add a decimal and a 0 to the 1 and the 2 so that we can see how we can now number using tenths. Now you can see 1 6/10 and where it is on the number line. Since 6 is greater than 5, the 1 6/10 is closer to 2. So 1 6/10 rounds up to the 2. Since it is a whole number, we don't need the decimal or the 0. To do this without the number line, first we want to look at the number we are rounding to. Since we are rounding to the nearest whole number, I am going to underline the digit 1. Now, just like when we normally round, we want to look to the digit to the right. If the digit is equal to or greater than 5, we will round up. Since it is a 6, the 1 rounds up to a 2. Again, since we are rounding to a whole number, we don't need the decimal. Let's do another one. Let's round 5 2/10 to the nearest whole number. Start with putting our whole numbers on the number line. Since 5 2/10 is between 5 and 6, I can label my number line. I am going to add the decimal and 0 to both whole numbers. Now I can fill in the numbers between. Next, locate 5 2/10. As you can see, it is closer to the 5. So 5 2/10 rounded to the nearest whole number is 5, written without the decimal. Now we are going to round 5 2/10 to the nearest whole number without the number line. Since we are rounding to the nearest whole number, we want to underline the whole number, which is the 5. Next, look at the digit to the right. Since 2 is less than 5, our number will round down to 5. Since we are rounding to a whole number, again, we don't need to write the decimal. Next, we are going to try rounding to the nearest tenth. This looks a little different, especially on a number line. Let's round the number 3 57/100 to the nearest tenth. On a number line, we have to look at which two numbers 3 57/100 goes between. But since we are rounding to the nearest tenth, we have to look at which 2/10 the 3 57/100 is between. So, since 3 57/100 is between 3 5/10 and 3 6/10, that is what we are going to do on our number line. To help make this easier, we are going to add the extra 0 behind the two numbers so that everything has the same number of digits behind the decimal. So we have 3 50/100 and 3 60/100. Now it's easier to fill in the 9 lines between the two numbers. Now we need to find 3 57/100 on the number line. As you can see, the number is closer to 3 6/10. So 3 57/100 rounds up to 3 6/10. Since we are rounding to the nearest tenth, we do not need to have anything behind the tenth spot. Let's do the same one without the number line. First, we want to mark off the part of the number that we need to keep. After we round a decimal, everything outside of this mark drops off. Remember, since we are rounding to the tenth, nothing can be written after the tenth in the final answer. So look at the 5 that is in the tenths place. Look to its right. Since it is a 7, we will round up. 3 57/100 rounds to 3 6/10. The last one we are going to do is rounding to the nearest hundredths. Let's round 6 283,000 to the nearest hundredth. First, we will do it with the number line. Since we are rounding to the nearest hundredth, we will write our two end numbers on the number lines as hundredths. Since 6 and 283 thousandths is between 6 and 28 hundredths and 6 and 29 hundredths, those will be our numbers to start with. We can add the zeros to help us see how it works on the number line. Then the 9 pieces in between are labeled as thousandths. Find the 6 and 283 thousandths on the number line. As you can see, the 3 is smaller than 5, so it is closer to 6 and 28 hundredths. Now let's round 6 and 283 thousandths to the nearest hundredth without the number line. Start by identifying which digit is in the hundredths place and marking off that part of the number. Since the 8 is in the hundredths place, we are going to look to its right. Since 3 is smaller than 5, our number rounds down. So 6 and 283 thousandths rounded to the nearest hundredth is 6 and 28 hundredths. This concludes our lesson. Let's take a look at the takeaways from today's lesson. 1. On a number line, it helps to add the extra zeros behind the decimal to the end numbers. 2. When rounding to the nearest whole number, you don't write the decimal. 3. Mark off the part of the number you are rounding and drop the rest. 4. If the digit to the right is equal or greater than 5, round up. 5. Your final answer shouldn't have anything past the decimal spot that you are rounding to. So if rounding to the tenths spot is the last place that you should have a digit.